Hear from Miguel soon. We're here to talk about what started as an academic project, MedHELM, among four graduate students in a small group, and now has scaled into a living, breathing community of medical AI evaluations of large language models. So we'll talk about how this journey came about, what milestones we've achieved, and where we need your support and your help to really make this an open source community that everyone can benefit from. So we've divided the presentation today into the three milestones. One is, of course, building the evaluation framework, which supports the academic artifact or the Nature Medicine paper that came out of our work. And soon after this was released, we realized that there was a huge gap between an academic paper versus making something feasible, viable for the broader community to run and contribute to, which paved way for parts 2 and 3, where we open up this benchmarking system to the community. And part 3 is where we hope we're all headed in terms of scaling routine evaluations. I don't think I need to convince folks in the audience that LLMs are entering clinical workflows faster than we would have ever expected. It's literally at the speed of light. We hear headlines every day, things like, oh, AI scribes can now save 15,000 hours. This was out from Kaiser. Similarly, Sutter Health has been using AI for clinical decision support and loving it. And then we have these new headlines around ChatGPT Health, Claude for healthcare. Now there's Copilot for Health, Amazon Health, Perplexity Health, the list goes on. So all frontier labs are eagerly investing into healthcare because they clearly see a value add. They clearly see a place where a difference can be made. This is great, right? Adoption in healthcare has traditionally been very slow, but when you're looking at headlines like these, adoption is faster than ever before. This is super exciting, but to the skeptics in the room, it's also a little bit scary. Why is that? So evaluation of these models, of these systems, is greatly lagging. We did this systematic review that was published in JAMA in 2024, where we looked at around 500 publications that explicitly used LLMs in healthcare. And we found that about half of them were evaluating these models on basic USMLE-style questions, which are US medical licensing exams that people take before they start practicing residency and actually practicing medicine in person. And only 5% of these used any real patient data or patient electronic health records. Now, why is that concerning? Well, passing the USMLE is a great milestone in a med student's life, but that is not the end-all be-all. Practicing actual medicine is not a multiple choice exam where you're given options and you have to choose what the patient has or what the treatment has to be. You have to come up with your own diagnoses, differential diagnoses, your own options, and come up with the answer on your own. No one's giving you an A through E on what could be happening with a patient. And secondly, multiple choice questions or cleaned up patient vignettes look very different from an actual electronic health record note. So having worked in EHRs for a while, the language is very different. Some of the shorthand used isn't even English. It's very hard to comprehend. So that's what we need to test these models on. We're optimizing for multiple choice tests, not patient outcomes. And the end all be all, the goal we're all headed towards is improving healthcare, improving patient outcomes. And our evaluation should support the same principle, which is where we introduce MedHELM. So MedHELM is really a community effort on various degrees and various angles. It is this entire framework that starts with a task taxonomy that we created that I'll talk more about, that is really representative of actual tasks healthcare providers do on a daily basis. After that, we try to map benchmark data sets to these tasks and evaluate a bunch of models on these tasks. And then we come up with different evaluation metrics based on whether it's an open-ended task, which is draft a summary for this patient, versus a close-ended task, which is what is the treatment plan for this patient. And then we just release it to the world. There's already a leaderboard that's public. Anyone can access. There's a repo where people can run these benchmarks. And we have also published our paper in Nature Medicine that folks are welcome to read. So why building the taxonomy? So the biggest problem, the biggest gripe with evaluations when we were building MedHELM was they're not representative of tasks that people do. So what we did was we surveyed around 29 clinicians across different healthcare systems, Stanford, Mayo, different specialties. And we said, what are things that you do on a daily basis? Be very concrete. And they said things like generating a differential diagnosis, or triaging and routing patient messages, or generating billing codes. And we had around 121 such tasks. Then we grouped them into 22 subcategories and 5 categories, where we wanted to see what are the major themes of things that happen in a healthcare system. So this was one of the first taxonomies built that actually represented at a grand scale of what are things that are done on a daily basis. And this is by no means comprehensive. We want your support and output in making this broader and bigger. Next, we wanted to create and map the benchmarks. So we wanted to take pre-existing benchmarks or create new benchmarks such that we're able to get 100% coverage across our subcategories and categories. So as I said, we have 5 categories, 22 subcategories, 121 tasks. We thought as a small academic group, probably we can provide 100% coverage on a task level. Let's start by mapping on the subcategory and category level. And then we had our results, the leaderboard. So here you're seeing the different model providers. You'll see that our paper has older models while we're updating a leaderboard with new frontier models, and then win rate. Win rate is basically a metric that quantifies that for a specific model, if I were to run that model against a different set of model for different questions, how many times does my model A win over all the other pairwise comparisons? And the key insight is our mean win rate is 0.7. There is no clear winner for all models or across all models. And why win rate? Because hospitals are really going towards this principle of let's just have this one model solve everything, do all the tasks. And we're showing that if you really deployed any of these models today, no one would win or be the most accurate across everything. And then we have a more granular version of performance by category, where we're seeing that most of these models are failing or doing poor across administration and workflow, because that's the area that's super underrepresented, that has a bunch of real patient EHR based on the benchmarks we built that probably these models are not exposed to or aware of or trained on. So we have more results in our academic paper that folks are welcome to take a look at. Next on, I'll pass on the baton to Miguel, who will really talk about, now that we have this academic artifact, how do we turn this into a living and breathing community and have people contribute to this benchmark and use it on a daily basis.
Thank you, Suhana, for showing all the work we've done so far, and the team. Huge thank you to everyone that has contributed to this project so far. Now, as you mentioned, we will share how MedHELM is transitioning from a Stanford research project into a community-owned infrastructure. One of our main goals with MedHELM was to make it useful for the community. In that sense, we think about the following pillars to lower the barriers for health systems and researchers to use it. 1, for the results to be reproducible by the community. We want researchers and health systems to be able to download the framework and reproduce the same results they see in the public leaderboard. 2, to make it easier for researchers to contribute tasks and benchmarks. We want to lower the friction for researchers to contribute their own datasets as more applications and use cases get developed. 3, for MedHELM to be sustainable. MedHELM was originally created as an open source project, and we believe that for it to remain sustainable, it has to be governed by the community. And 4, to create both public and private benchmarks. We truly believe there needs to be a mixture of these public and private benchmarks, public benchmarks to foster collaboration and exploration, and private benchmarks to ensure that the results remain useful by ensuring model providers cannot game them. To fulfill these goals, we are transferring this stewardship to 2 trusted organizations, Pacific AI and the Coalition for Health AI, CHAI, each of which will have their own set of responsibilities. On one side, we have worked closely with Pacific AI to transfer the ownership of the code base and make this transition as smooth as possible. Their role in this next phase is crucial, as they will host the long-term support for MedHELM. This includes contributing to the source code, developing documentation, tutorials, and benchmarks, and in general, lowering the barriers for health systems and researchers to adopt the framework. In fact, they have already created medhelm.org, hosting the first version of these efforts. And most significantly, the community now has an easy-to-use pip installable module, pip install MedHELM. Now, we want to share the technical roadmap from the team at Pacific AI for MedHELM. To begin with, the team has already simplified the installation process of MedHELM to one single command, as I mentioned before, and to refactor the code to remove unnecessary dependencies that might not even be allowed in healthcare infrastructure. Also, they have some ongoing work, which includes simplifying the process of adding new benchmarks and evaluation metrics, and integrating benchmarks like HealthBench from OpenAI as part of the existing MedHELM scenarios. Finally, they will also be creating synthetic datasets for benchmarking based on private sources such as Mimic. In a month, the team has already deployed such important features and is committed to the long-term support of this project. Now, we want to talk about CHAI's role in this transition. CHAI's mission is to advance the responsible development, deployment, and oversight of AI in healthcare by fostering collaboration across the health sector. We want CHAI to be involved in this project as it is uniquely positioned to serve as the center for this community. This is because it has already more than 100 health system members and more than 1,000 matter experts in its network. It has also partnered with 14 organizations to deliver governance, testing, data management, and advisory services for AI applications. And in this sense, CHAI responsibilities will be to owning and running the leaderboard, facilitating quarterly and update the LLMs, and linking results to model cards. So far, we've talked about how MedHELM came to be and its transition from a research project to a community-owned infrastructure with the help of Pacific AI and CHAI. Now, we want to share how we envision MedHELM for routine evaluation at scale. Before deploying a medical AI application, we believe it's of utmost importance to evaluate models to ensure they meet the requirements. And when we think about routine evaluation at scale, we generally refer to the following steps. First of all, to select the task you wish to evaluate. For example, generate progress notes. This step is where you also define the metrics you want to measure. For example, precision and latency. Then, to run MedHELM against a set of candidate models. This allows you to measure the predefined set of metrics important to your application across different models and providers. Third is to compare these candidate models on the leaderboard, as Suhana mentioned before, and understand where the pitfalls are for the intended task. As we've shown in the research project, not every model is the best for the similar categories and similar tasks. This is where you analyze task-based metrics such as precision, exact match, or LM-based judges, and compare system metrics such as latency and cost for your application. Four is to select the model that best fits your use case based on the trade-offs identified in the previous step. And this allows you to really deploy applications with the confidence the model will perform as you intended. Finally, we think of all of this process as a life cycle and not as a one-time run. In that sense, the last step is to rerun this evaluation periodically as your application evolves. And this is important for two main reasons. One, model providers generally deprecate all models while new models are introduced. And this process allows you to be prepared for such changes without sacrificing performance. And two, as your application gets adopted, you want to ensure that any distribution shift is not degrading model performance in production. And this process allows you to identify and repair such changes. Altogether, these steps allows your organization to adopt medical AI applications with the confidence they will perform as intended and with a monitoring plan already implemented. The good news is that you don't have to be a research institution to be a part of MedHELM and benefit from all of its features. In general, we see two paths for health systems to be a part of this community. Path A is to use MedHELM for procurement. This means to use the infrastructure to run a standard benchmark before deployment. This helps you and your organization to verify vendor claims on performance against standardized results. We've seen how most of the major LLMs already are maxing out performance in benchmarks such as the USMLE and even some other benchmarks on Mimic. So it's really important to make sure that you verify your performance against your own data and verify it with a source that you can trust. This also lowers the barriers for secure adoption of AI applications. And the overall idea is that you have access to a supported infrastructure that allows you to move at speed without sacrificing compliance. The other path is one in which you contribute more to the community. And this is done by adding private clinical datasets for evaluation, publishing your scores to the leaderboard without your private data to prevent benchmark contamination. And something that is quite important is that as new use cases emerge, you contribute new metrics that matter for this task. And the idea here is to be an active member of the community that helps shape the evaluation landscape for medical AI applications. We're living in a world where AI is being adopted quite rapidly, as Suhana has suggested. In healthcare, the stakes for these applications are quite higher compared to most other industries. To ensure that these technologies are deployed responsibly, we depend on the mutual collaboration across the research community. For that, we are asking health systems, researchers, and AI developers to, 1, use MedHELM to evaluate models in your research and cite this framework so it gets more traction. 2, to contribute new clinical tasks and benchmarks by making pull requests on GitHub. 3, for health systems to share de-identified datasets for private benchmarking. And 4, for all healthcare players to join the CHAI network and be a part of these evaluation efforts. The standard for medical AI evaluation is being written now. Help us write it.